Okay. Good evening, everyone. Anna's going to get us started this evening because we need to do elections, so.
Hello. Welcome to the February 14th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. In order to allow all attendees to hear board business, I would ask at this time, members of the board and audience, please set your cell phones to silent. As a reminder, there are generally two opportunities for the public to address the board. One will be during the public comment portion of the agenda. Speakers during that portion of the meeting will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker and are requested to sign up to speak with the town clerk. The other opportunity will be held during any public hearing when instructed by the chair to do so. Speakers in a public hearing will be asked to keep their comments brief and must speak to the topic being considered. Now, the election of chair of planning board. The chair and vice chair will be elected by regular members. ETJ members will not vote on the election. Each year, the planning board's rules of procedures require that the board name a chair and vice chair for that year. Generally, this happens at the January meeting or the first regular meeting of each year if one is not held in January. The rules of procedure state that the staff shall call the meeting to order and conduct the meeting until the chair has been named. Again, this process is for regular board members. The ETJ members will not vote at this time. I will begin by accepting nominations from the floor for the chairman of planning board. Nominations will be recorded in the order in which they are received. I will ask twice more for any nominations before closing the nominations. At any time before closing the nominations, a member who has been nominated may decline their nomination. At that time, I will call for a vote on the first nomination. If the first nomination has a majority of vote in favor, they will be seated as the chairman of the board. Once the chair has been named, they will take over the duties of chair and will conduct an election for the vice chair position. At this time, I would like to call for nominations for the chair of the planning board.
I'd like to approve Sarah. Make a motion that she be chair again.
Sarah Glanville.
I didn't know if anybody else was going to say anything.
I will make a second call for nominations for the chair. I will make a third and final call for nominations for the chair. Seeing none, I will declare the nominations for chair of the planning board closed. All those in favor of Sarah Glanville as chair of the planning board for 2022, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Glanville as your chair.
I really thought there would be a upswell of
Madam
of
Chairman,
support for someone else this year.
it is your meeting.
Thank you. All right, I guess we will move on to the election of the vice chair. I will say this, Anna has really taught me that I have been opening the meetings completely inadequately all this time. I didn't know I should be giving all this briefing at the beginning. I'm going to step up my game here. Can we nominate someone who's not here for vice chair? Or?
You may.
Oh, okay, okay. So we'll take nominations for vice chair. As people know, Ed Stafford has been our vice chair. But if anyone else is interested in being vice chair, well, it's open to nominations.
I'm not doing it twice now. Somebody else can do it. Carrie?
Can I nominate?
Ed has stated that he's willing to.
Yeah. I know, we know.
Can I nominate?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll nominate Ed Stafford
He's aware and he's,
for vice chair.
Yes. He said he would do it, so.
Yes, he was briefed last week and was willing to do it.
Can we postpone the vote until after he
anybody know why he's not here?
might get here, or in case he's just running late? Did he forget that we don't start at 6:30 anymore? Can we move that to the end of the meeting?
I was going to say, my suggestion would be just to postpone that to towards the end of the meeting, and you can always carry it forward to the next meeting.
Oh, we can, okay.
If, for example, he doesn't show up, so,
Yeah.
Okay,
no problem.
okay. I know once before he forgot that we start at 6 now and not 6:30, so maybe that's just what's going on. You want, do we need a vote to move it on the agenda, or?
Yes, that would be appropriate.
Okay,
A motion to table the issue until later in the meeting.
all right, thank you.
Second.
Second, did you get that, Nancy? All right, thank you. This is just all those in favor vote, is that right, Nancy? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we will move that to the end of the meeting. Okay, now we have the roll call, yeah? Anna?
Sarah Glanville,
Here.
Carrie Miller,
Here.
Jane Walker Payne,
Here?
Ed Stafford, Russ Walker,
Here.
Robert Kuhn,
Here.
Peggy Levi,
Here.
Donald Dale,
Here.
Sherrie Richmond,
Here.
Rebecca Raymore. Here.
All right. All right, so let's move us on then. The next item is the setting of our regularly scheduled meetings. And I do know that there has been one request to change from what would typically be our July meeting. What would it usually be?
Staff is asking to change to July 18th due to a staff conflict.
Okay. So if we see here, we have in front of us the regularly scheduled meeting. We did not, as we know, have the January 10th meeting. And then that July meeting, the request is to move it to July 18th. So if all this looks good to everyone, can we have a motion to
Move
accept?
to accept the schedule as listed.
Thank you, Carrie.
Second.
Thank you. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. We've adopted the regular scheduled meeting with that one change for July. All right. We are rolling here. Okay, now we need approval of minutes. We have quite a few minutes to review here. We have March 8th, May 10th, August 11th, September 20th, and November 8th, all from 2021. And we do have one change to the November 8th meeting minutes. Listed in those minutes, there was a reference to Longhorn Court. It should be Langhorn Court, Langholm Court. And so there is that change in the minutes. I believe Nancy's already made that change for us, but in our packets, that change hasn't been made. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. Did anyone have any questions or changes needed for the minutes? Sherrie, go ahead.
Just small, two changes on 1718, my first name. My
Oh,
mother
pages
went-
17, 18?
Yes, my mother went through a lot with my father to get the E on the end. I just wanted to have something to chuckle about.
You got that, Nancy? All right. Any other changes that anyone saw necessary? All right, can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Russ. Thank you, Carrie. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Sherrie, I will tell you, I've gotten all sorts of creative spellings of my last name. My favorite was Glamzeal. I was like, ooh, that's like a Amazon glamorous queen here. I like that, so. All right. All right, now we are going to move on to our public hearing. So Anna, are you going to come up and present for us?
Hello again. In November, the Planning Board was presented with Articles 17 and 24 for LDO updates. During that meeting, the minimum housing code, minimum non-residential code was presented as being from the North Carolina Building Code. Since that presentation, it has been corrected that this code language is based on the International Property Maintenance Code. That's been referenced in the updated LDO. Council has asked that it was sent back to you just for clarification, to make sure that if you have any changes or questions, that they can be addressed. Article 12 of 160D does give the authority for municipalities to adopt and enforce ordinances relating to dwellings that are unfit for human habitation. So that's based on this. I do have Brandon Emery here with Alliance Code Enforcement. He has written this Article 24 and just has a couple words to say about it.
Right.
Hello, everyone. So this was presented to you previously. There's not been any changes to it aside from notating where all the information came from. So when we originally presented it, ordinances are kind of put together from things that have been utilized in other towns that have been kind of tried and true, tested through courts or what have you. And a lot of the information has come from, there was some building code in there, but the primary thing, when you go back to the very beginning, the very onset of where minimum housing code really derives from, it comes from the International Property Maintenance Code. So one of the things, I'll just give you just a short, brief overview of kind of what the purpose of the International Building Code is the International Property Maintenance Code, the IPMC, establishes minimum requirements for the maintenance of existing buildings through model code regulations that contain clear and specific property maintenance and property improvement provisions. So this is something that's pretty much universally used across, all language in the minimum housing ordinance. That's where we get some of the specifics for it. And, it's international for a reason. It's something that kind of universally can be used and applied. Jamestown is unique in the fact that we don't have a minimum housing ordinance. We have an unsafe structure ordinance, which addresses similar things, but what it does is it requires us to go out of the town itself to be able to enforce it and have to utilize a county building inspector to be able to move forward with anything. What this does is this allows the town itself to be able to handle everything in-house without having to reach out for additional support. Depending on what election cycle it is and who you have in position, some people are more willing to work with others than others are. And when we got brought on board, our goal was to ensure that we put the town of Jamestown in the best possible place to be able to address any issues and not have to depend on another municipality or another organization to tell the town itself what their issues are. You're here, you can tell what your issues are. So there's nothing in the ordinance that is out of the ordinary. It's when we say minimum housing, it is very minimal. It is a minimum housing ordinance. It's something that allows us to take enforcement action when there is, partial collapse or outside elements are able to get in, meaning there's holes in the roof, there's rotted exterior surfaces, broken windows, things of that nature. It also allows us to address issues in dealing with some electrical, some plumbing, and some ventilation. So a lot of that you run into issues with landlords who may, have renters that they are kind of taking advantage of. It allows us to come in and do actual inspections, with their consent to look at, do they have proper ventilation? Do they have proper heating? Do they have proper water, access to utilities, proper electrical, things of that nature. So it is that very basic minimum. It is not something that probably meets most of our standard of living, but it's something that under general statute and under the International Maintenance Code ensures that we do have a level that is safe for everyone to live in and to reside in. But this was just kind of a housekeeping thing to clarify. When it went further before, there were some specific questions about exact specific language. And when we started looking and detailing where specific language comes, we had to chase it further and further down. And the one good thing about our ordinance that we're doing that Anna's worked really hard on is citing everything specifically. There's a lot of ordinances that they don't cite any of that. They don't adopt any of it. It's just the language is in there. So this is cited very well from Anna on pretty much verbatim the language that came out there. So we just wanted to go through the process and ensure that just through, ensure that there's no questions and anything like that you understand exactly where it's coming from.
Great.
Did y'all have any questions reference this ordinance or any items in it? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you used the word minimum several times. Is there any way to move beyond minimum, or is that just what we do?
So there's specific general statutes that regulate what level of action you can take onto properties. And with traditional stick-built structures, it is minimal. It has to maintain minimal. When it comes to manufactured homes, Class B manufactured, some Class A manufactured, you can go in and detail a little bit more as far as what specific, underpinning, what specific exterior, things like that, because it's a manufactured home. But in dealing with actual stick-built structures, it's a minimum standard. We can't go, any further in depth. But keep in mind, this is a lot of health and safety issues. These are things that, a normal person would walk up. You could walk, let's say you're walking your dog and you see a house and you look by it and you're like, man, I don't know what exactly is wrong with that house, but there's something wrong with it. This will detail exactly what is wrong with it and give us a list, and what it does is it puts the town in a position to be able to address it. And again, we can't force anyone to do anything, but what we can do is encourage them as much as possible and then put the town in the position to be able to address it if we need to. So worst case scenario, if it's a situation where you have, an abandoned structure, you have someone who just doesn't care, we can go through this process, prepare a specific ordinance for that structure, and the town would have the authority at that point to abate it as they see fit. Not necessarily, demo it. It could be fix it up. It could be a plethora of things. But without these ordinances, you're not in the position to be able to address those issues and those situations. And we do have some. We've got cases that we've opened up before, and if, with some of those cases, if they wanted to, they were cooperative with us because we explained to them what the issues were because there were multiple violations there. But if they didn't want to do it and they didn't want to fight anything, then, we're stuck having to go to the county to bring a building inspector in, hopefully to be able to do it for an unsafe structure. And it's different requirements for an unsafe structure than it is for minimum housing.
I guess I was thinking, and with examples of thinking of children in a place and the minimum is enforced, I guess that's what I was thinking
Well,
about.
and the minimum is the minimum safety. So, I mean, it's not we're not going to allow for a dangerous situation.
Okay, that's-
There's been plenty of times where I've enforced minimum housing code in other jurisdictions where I've been reached out directly by, the county's, department say, listen, we've had some concerns over these children in this house. There's nothing, we can't identify abuse, we can't identify this, but we know there's some issues. Can you take a look at it and see what you can figure out? And, it's things like they don't have running water. We're able to ensure that they've got running water. We're able to ensure that they've got heat. There's a lot of, I've been in one situation where we had an elderly female living in a trailer and a landlord didn't want to fix the heat. And, it's the middle of winter and you walk in there and it's 55 degrees inside. Well, that's one of those things where we on the phone, we have a word of prayer with the property owner, and we get that fixed right away. Because ultimately, it gives us the ability to shut them down and not allow them to utilize that property how they should, or how they want to, if they don't meet that minimum standard. But the minimum standard is enough to where it's going to be a safe environment if
Okay.
children are there or elderly are there. It's
that
not,
was my question.
yeah, it's not, you're living in a stick structure, as long as it's not going to collapse on you, you're okay. No, there are minimum requirements that require, heat or require utilities and things of that nature. So it's safe enough, but it's not, it's not the Taj Mahal.
Brian, I had something, your packet's probably not the same, but it's under the 24.4-7, basic equipment and facilities. And you were just talking about heat, is the B heating systems. And it's number 1. And can you find it, Anna? Thank you. It's 53 in my packet here. You see it, central and electric heating systems? I think this is a typo. Every central or electric heating beating system shall be sufficient capacity.
Yeah, so that'll be a typo, that's correct.
And then I looked up the statute that went with this because a little birdie put in my ear, that doesn't sound like it's a complete thought. And so so this says here, blah, 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 every dwelling unit to a minimum temperature of 68 degrees Fahrenheit measured at a point 3 feet above the floor. But the statute adds with an outside temperature of 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we should mirror that language. The person who brought it to my attention, let me know. For instance, I don't know anything about heating and cooling, so, but if you don't have that kind of secondary statement to it, that someone could say, well, I measured it, it was 65 degrees out, so the heating system only had to heat the house 3 degrees.
Right.
So if you measure it on a 20-degree day, you have to have a heating system that can get it up to.
So really what it is about, it really doesn't matter what the individual states, it's a matter of if we go and have to measure it. If we walk into a house and we see that the house is 55 degrees, whether it's, 55 degrees outside or it's 20 degrees outside. I mean, that's pretty much your barrier, your maximum limit. It's got to be the 68 with a 20-degree, weather outside. So, if we walk out there and it's colder than that, depending on what the day is, that's really what matters, is when we're out there doing that inspection.
Okay.
We can add that language into it to mirror that, verbatim, but it's one of those things where it's really, as long as it is at that 68, if it's 75 degrees outside, we're not going to be looking at it from,
Right.
Is it 68? We're going to be looking at it from a cold day.
Right.
So, even if it's warmer, if it's 35 degrees out and it's lower than 68 degrees inside the house, that's 20 is cold.
Yeah.
20 is very cold. So if you don't have any heat whatsoever, it's going to be dramatically lower.
Yeah, I guess my concern was thinking of the landlord situation that you just, say a tenant calls, says, I don't have heat, my landlord won't fix the heat. The day that we happen to go out on inspection, it's a 65-degree day. So it's able to get up to that 68 degrees because
Right.
the heating unit is capable of heating 3 degrees.
Yeah,
But if you were to go, look at Saturday it was almost 70 degrees, and today it was 45 degrees. So we all know it can be a quick shift so that, and again, I don't know anything about this. This is just
Right.
what the person told me. So just so that the landlord can't say, well, see, it's an adequate heating system because it's 68 degrees. Well, it only had to heat 3 degrees.
I'll
so-
say this, normally, when we get called out on something like that,
Yeah.
we're going to get out there as quickly as we can. If it's something we can do same day, adjust our schedule, do what we need to do. Most of the time, we're not getting calls like that unless we've had an extended period of cold weather.
Right.
Just because when you have that uptick, you have that shift, it'll warm up dramatically more and people are able to deal with it more. I've not seen an issue with this language in an ordinance yet. It's one of those
Okay.
things where we try not to split hairs with any of it. We try to be as obvious and what a reasonable person would look at. The same burden of proof that they use in law enforcement is what a reasonable person who may not know anything about building code or anything about ordinance, if they walked into this house, what would they see? What issues? If you walk in, you're like, man, it's freezing in here, and you look at the temperature and see what it's at. Then we'll utilize that to go. So, adding that 20 degrees, I don't think will give anything more to the ordinance.
Okay.
But it speaks verbatim, and again, I want to make sure that you all are happy with it.
Yeah, I don't really care too much either way. I just don't want a landlord to be able to argue. My heating system is large enough because you went out and it read 68 degrees, but 3 days from now when it's 20 degrees outside, it's not going to read 68 degrees.
Most of the time, we don't run into issues that the heating system is too small. Most of the time, we run into issues that it just doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Or the air that it puts out is not warm air. So the fan will work.
Yeah.
It's not putting any hot air or any warm air out. So, again, that's not an issue that we've seen. Anytime that we've worked on a case where they've not had proper heat, it's been they don't have it at all, and they're having to heat. They're having to go buy, kerosene heaters or, space heaters
Yeah.
in that way, and they're not getting the sufficient heat that they're supposed to.
Okay. It doesn't matter to me at all. I just thought I'd point it out because I did see that general statute.
Yeah,
had-
we'll adjust that just to mirror the actual general statute, so there's no question, because, transparency, we want everything, when you hold it up against something else, we want that litmus test to show where it's coming from, but just on a practical application procedure, it's not something that we've run into as of yet.
Okay.
That would cause an issue, because, normally when it gets called, it's because it's not working, they're refusing to fix it, and you walk in and it's cold.
Yeah. Listen, with the 68 degrees, I'm not a reasonable person apparently because I thought 68 degrees, 80 degrees, it needs to heat to 80 degrees. I was like, I'd be freezing at 68 degrees.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it might as well be 32 degrees in here. Oh, okay. Gary, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a
Yeah, go ahead.
question. Maybe this is for Anna. Anna, your title is town planner? And we have a planning director, that's a different position?
Thank you, Brandon.
That is correct. I am town planner and planner director, I believe.
Okay, in the document, it says planning director,
In,
and in your title is town planner. I just want to clarify that that's the same position
What document are you talking about where it says planning
The-
director?
throughout this document. We got two different titles, and I think it's the same position.
Yeah, we're still in transition, obviously.
Obviously, that's what I want to clarify.
So
I would hope it was you.
typically, it would be town manager, town planner, or their designee.
Okay.
So it could be easily applied to town planner or their designee. So I don't think we'll have any problem. You know, the person that will probably be approaching people about the items in this will be Brandon and his staff. So those would be our designee as a contractor of the town, not technically town staff on many occasions.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear, but those are in transition, and we'll get that sorted out as well.
I just saw two different titles.
I understand, I did too,
Okay.
but
Cool.
I do
All right.
appreciate the attention to detail.
Okay.
Thanks.
Maybe she got a raise.
And Sarah, I'd like to address your questions about that heating system.
Oh, yeah.
I'm happy to update that. I noticed, I pulled it up sitting here, that 2 other heating facilities is also slightly different wording. I'll adjust that, that's a really easy change. But I do want to note that most of these that are noted to the International Property Maintenance Code are not word for word, but they are in the same spirit or in easier to understand language. So I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. But I went through today and checked word for word, and I firmly believe that they're in similar spirit, if not worded exactly the same.
I did have another question just about the, shoot, where was it? I can't remember now, but where it talked about basically how procedure for enforcement, service complaints and orders, and it's the very first A, procedure for enforcement, preliminary investigation, notice, hearing. And it says, whenever a petition is filed with the inspector by a public authority or by at least 5 residents of the town, charging that any dwelling or dwelling unit is unfit for human habitation. And Brenda, maybe you can speak to this since you have experience of this. The only thing that I thought about, and I was glad it was 5 residents and not just 1, is not to have, you know, someone who's low income in their neighborhood who can't necessarily afford the same kind of upgrades that other people can. And now there 5 people in the neighborhood decide we don't like what that their house looks different from ours.
Right.
So let's file a complaint. And now you have this person who can't afford to do the kinds of things like the screens on the windows
Right.
or something like
So-
this.
so
you know.
I'll-
I'm not talking about totally unsafe things. I'm talking about like, you know,
So I'll dive into that just a little bit. So the 5 individuals is something that's been in ordinance for years and years and years. And that's where a lot of your original stuff would come from. You wouldn't take any action unless you had 5, town residents file an official complaint of doing it. So it's language that's kind of been kept in there for years. Your concern, we already have that. We already have individuals who don't like the way something other looks. They'll file a complaint, even if it's just the one individual, they'll file a complaint. We'll go out and take a look at it. One of the things that we do is we'll look at it and we'll discern whether or not there is an actual violation or there isn't a violation. When you look at the window screens, so there's a lot of houses that don't have window screens, but those houses aren't using those windows as ventilation.
Yeah.
So what you're looking at specifically in dealing with, let's say a bathroom. A bathroom is required to have ventilation, either by window or by an actual fan inside. So a lot of your housing may have a fan that doesn't work and there's no window in there. Or they do have a window in there and say, hey, here's our ventilation, but there's no screen in it. So it's a window that's required to be open for an extended period of time that does not have a screen that allows vermin, that allows things to come inside of it. So that's where that minimum standard is on there. We're not going to turn into the screen patrol of driving around and looking for houses that you've got a ripped screen or you've got this or you've got that. Now, if you're utilizing it as ventilation, not saying you're airing your house out during the spring or during the fall or doing something like that. It's the same thing. We're not putting you in violation because there's trash at the road. But if it's something that is being used on a regular basis, then you're required to meet that minimum standard. And it's almost the same thing, I'll put it to you similar to this, as when the North Carolina law changed to where you could be cited for not wearing a seatbelt in the back seat. So the way that came out is you couldn't be pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt in the back seat. But if you got pulled over for something else and they saw you were not wearing
Right.
a seatbelt in the back seat, you were going to get a ticket, right? So we're not going out looking for these things. We're looking for holes in your roof. We're looking for the boards, the soffitting the siding to where we can see all the way into your house, or stuff is completely rotted away, and you can see where water damage is, where mold is going to end up growing, and where critters are getting inside. Or for partially collapsed structures, or a tree has fallen on it, and it's been there for, for a year. Those are things that we're looking at. But when we go in and we get a call from a renter saying, hey, listen, I've talked to my landlord, they won't fix these issues, I've got several issues in the house, can you come take a look? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation with them and say, listen, once this bell is rung, we can't unring it. So what this means is if your landlord refuses to do the repairs that they need to do, we're going to deem this house not habitable for human habitation, and you're going to have to find somewhere else to live. So if you want us to come there and take a look at it, we would love to be your champion, but we can't do that. We can't force anybody to go in and clean it up. But what we can do is not allow them to rent that space out because it's not safe for someone to be in. So once we get to that point, most of the time it's, listen, we still want you to come in. We need this. We're already looking for somewhere else to move, but we want to get this stuff taken care of. So we go in, we take a look at it, and that's part of the inspection process that we do. We'll walk into the bathrooms and we'll see what the ventilation is, and we'll see. Or we'll walk in and, they may not have central air conditioning, and they're utilizing the windows as ventilation throughout. And it's just open air, there's nothing going through it, then we're gonna put that in as a violation of the minimum standard. But we haven't had a situation yet where that was the only violation. There's always something that's gonna be electrical or water or structural or something like that. So it's one of those things where we look for it, we identify it, but it's not a contributing factor of, you don't have screens, so you're in trouble. We're gonna write you up for it. That's not the case for that.
Okay. And then my last question is, and I know this is not the job of the town, but when I read this, my biggest concerns were renters, like you were talking about, and landlords not keeping the property maintained. But also people, like I mentioned before, who are low income, who can't necessarily afford to maintain their property the way that it should be maintained. And I'm not saying that those people should be allowed to just be in an uninhabitable space, but have you ever worked with, or Matthew or Anna, is there any way, so for those folks, like say with the running water, and they just can't afford, is there anyone who can point them at least towards resources?
That's what we do.
Okay.
That's one of the good things about my company in a whole versus dealing sometimes with the way most code enforcement is.
Yeah.
Is we establish, because we don't just work in this town, we've got about 14 other municipalities that we work with throughout the state. We range from Yadkin County all the way out to the other side of Raleigh, all the way down to Moore County. So we've got a lot of resources that we dealt with. I'll give you an example of something that we've done in another community. We had a lady, she was a widowed. She was living, she had to move out of the house, and she was living with her son, wanted to move back in their house, but she couldn't afford to be in there. There was the front porch was pretty much rotted away. There was an issue with the plumbing, so they weren't able to have running water come in because the hot water heater was messed up. So what we did was, through the contacts that we had, that I had, I'd found a contractor who periodically throughout the year would try to contribute to someone who needed something done. So what we ended up doing was we got a donation from him, and I met with a local church men's group who could do the work, and ultimately we were able to facilitate to get her a new water heater, to get the plumbing fixed, to get the wood, to have everything done. The men's group did it, and she had enough left over to pay the back taxes that she owed on the house itself, and she was able to move back.
Oh, great.
So
Yeah.
That's one of the things
Wonderful,
that
yeah.
we do. Just on the code enforcement side, when we've had issues with, we had a call here that somebody had concerns over some illegal parked vehicles on the road. They've been there for an extended period of time. We went and talked to the lady. It was an elderly lady. The battery was completely dead. Didn't have tags on the car. So we brought a jump box, talked to her. We jumped it off the floor, and she asked us if we could back it into her driveway so it wouldn't be a violation. So we did that. So our goal was to go above and beyond what we can do on the customer service side to assist. Now, that being said, if we're not here anymore and we change,
Right.
You've got a different code enforcement officer, then it can be done a completely different way. But that's the same thing that you run into with any position you have.
Yeah.
You have a different town manager, you have a different planner, you have a different fire chief, you have a different whoever. And that can completely, do different than what you currently have. But based off of this ordinance, it mirrors what most other municipal ordinances reflect, with the authority and the enforcement action that it's taken. And, my company, my inspectors, we go above and beyond to ensure that our level of customer service is the highest level possible, in dealing with it. So if we come across individuals, I work with Habitat for Humanity a lot, I work with other nonprofit organizations quite a bit to ensure that we've got a good connection. So if someone is in a serious bind, a serious situation, and does need help, then we're able to get that. Most of those are going to be owner-occupied properties, it's not going to apply for renters, but when you have a rental landlord, it's the one that's responsible.
Right.
For that person.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be a situation that I would foresee where we would come in and it be, an owner-occupied dwelling and them not have any capabilities and us not being able to discern or utilize good judgment in assisting them or putting them in contact with someone to help facilitate the proper repairs that need to be done on the house.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, thank you, Brandon. All right, well, if there's no others, I guess we can make a motion? Yeah? A motion, sounds like, I'm guessing to approve, because I haven't heard any real concerns. Oh, Matthew, you had something?
It is a public hearing, I know.
Oh, shoot, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, since we have a rousing crowd here, I'm sure we're going to get a lot of public comments. We will open the public hearing to comments, so anyone who would like to speak on this topic may come forward and give us your address and speak for 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, then I guess we will close the public hearing, and now we can make a motion to vote, yeah? Is that right? Okay. Just keep me in line.
I move that we accept them as written with the suggestions that they clarified the few items that were noted.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peggy. And anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Is this a roll call, or is this just a yay, nay? Anyone know?
You have a preference? I would say all.
Just all those in favor? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion has passed. And Ed, would you like to read our consistency statement? It's the exact same one that we did the last time we reviewed this, so.
Okay,
Are you okay, Ed? Do you want someone else to read it?
the proposed zoning text amendment is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan of the town of Jamestown. The planning board further finds that the proposed zoning text amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan because periodic updates to the zoning text are necessarily based upon changing conditions, regulations, and laws. Updates establish town compliance with regulating bodies and ensure the guiding documents are accurate, operational for each of the current goals of the Comprehensive Land Development Plan. The proposed zoning text amendment is reasonable. The Planning Board considers the proposed zoning text amendment to be reasonable because A, the report of town staff finding the proposed zoning text amendment to be reasonable is adopted by reference. B, the Planning Board further finds that the proposed zoning text amendment is reasonable because the text edits correct any previous errors and add clarifying language and formatting to make the documents easier to interpret and apply. And number 3, the proposed zoning text amendment is in the public interest. The Planning Board considers the proposed zoning text amendment to be in the public interest because A, the report of the town staff finding the proposed zoning text amendment to be in the public interest is adopted by reference. B, the Planning Board further finds that the proposed zoning text amendment is in the public interest because continuous improvements to the guiding documents promote consistent and equitable application of the regulations that promote the general health, safety, and welfare of the people of Jamestown.
Thank you, Ed. All right, can we get a motion to adopt that consistency statement?
So moved.
Thank you. And can we get a second? Thank you. Thank you. Did you get that, Nancy? Jane seconded it?
Yeah, me.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the consistency statement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, it is adopted. All right, now we will return to, should we do the public comment first, or we can return to the other item first? Okay, I don't think there's going to be any public comment, but let's return to our other item. Ed, we postponed the election of the vice chair. I nominated you, but we decided to wait till you were here to actually accept that nomination and to see if there were any other nominations. So we're going to return to that. So we have the one nomination on the floor for Ed Stafford. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right, and I have to ask one more time, is that right, Anna? Ask one more time if there's any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, so we have the nomination of Ed Stafford for vice chair. And this is just, this is not ETJ members, is that right, voting on this? Okay, so all others, all those.
May I make a comment?
Yes, please, Ed, go ahead.
First, I would like to apologize for my lateness to the board and everyone here that was on time, and my apologies to you.
Oh, thank you, Ed. I don't think any of us felt particularly scorned,
Okay. I wanted to say.
but I appreciate it. So, okay, all those in favor of Ed Stafford as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Oh, we forgot the motion. No one made the motion because we forgot it. Who would like to make the motion?
I move.
Thank you, Carrie. Who would second it?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. All right, so now we have the motion. And now we need the vote. Okay, all those in favor of Ed Stafford as vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, now it's official, Ed. Thank you, Ed,
Thank you very
for
much.
agreeing to serve another term. And I appreciate, I didn't get to say before, I appreciate everyone's confidence in me to continue on as chair. If next cycle anyone would like to step up and be chair, I'm happy to have them do it, but I'm also happy to continue on. I think Anna said I can do it 5 times. Carrie should know, you know the deal. I'm not sure how close I am to those 5 times, but. All right, now we will have public comment. If we had anyone sign up, I'm guessing no. No, Nancy, we didn't have anyone sign up for public comment? No. All right, then I think we are ready to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Okay, I'm sorry with your names.
Oh, Donald Dale.
Donald moved and then Robert
Second.
seconded it. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to learn everyone's names. And when the seating is not the same every time, I get confused. All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, we are adjourned.